As the debate over gun control intensifies in the United States, work continues on an international treaty to regulate the global arms trade. On Monday, the United Nations General Assembly voted to reopen negotiations on the treaty. The National Rifle Association has been a leading opponent of the deal. To talk more about this, we go to London to speak with Andrew Feinstein, author of The Shadow World: Inside the Global Arms Trade. He's working on a film version of the book. Feinstein's a former member of the African National Congress and member of Parliament in South Africa. We welcome you to Democracy Now! As we are now in this aftermath of the massacre at the elementary school in Connecticut, Andrew Feinstein, and after a week, the NRA spoke out, saying that every school in America should have an armed guard. What is your response?
To be quite honest, observing the response of the NRA to this awful tragedy from a distance, from outside the United States, it seems inexplicable. It verges on the crazy to suggest that the best way to deal with a bad guy with a gun, as Mr. Lepierre put it, is to have a good guy with a gun, completely loses sight of the real picture, which is to ensure that the bad guy, as he calls him, doesn't have access to the gun, which to someone like myself who researches now for over 12 years the global arms trade and spends a lot of time in the US, seems common sense, seems so obvious. But the NRA seems to be part of a massive group of vested interests that don't want to see any change to the status quo because it's a multi-trillion-dollar business. And it occurs within the context of what many years ago C. Wright Mills called the military metaphysic. And just listening to your news headlines at the beginning of your show, to hear about the deployment of US troops in 35 countries in Africa, the continent from which I come. My continent is perceived by the United States through a military prism. Similarly, domestically within the US, it seemed until the tragedy at Sandy Hook that these issues weren't even up for debate. And to those of us who would like to see a far better regulated arms trade, a highly regulated arms trade, because the reality at the moment is that the global trade in weapons is regulated less than the global trade in bananas. And just as we regulate things that can be harmful to our health, tobacco being the most obvious one, surely the guns that kill us need to be extremely highly regulated as well.
We're speaking to Andrew Feinstein, author of The Shadow World: Inside the Global Arms Trade. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back with him. Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.